to episode 123 of the SBP podcast, Mobile Filmmaking, and I am your host, Susie Botello. I don't usually point out the date when we publish our podcast, but today I'm going to do that. It's March 8th, 2022, and it's International Women's Day. We're going to celebrate this day together with our guest for this episode. Her name is Antoinette Van Sluytman, and I met her at an event that I went to last month, which I attended. I was really glad to be there, and I really enjoyed a panel in which she was speaking. The panel was called Black Women in Comics and Publishing. Antoinette was amazing as a speaker. Everyone was really inspired by the way she expressed herself. She says that words matter. They sure do. I want to also mention, just right before we talk with Antoinette, that we have a new sponsor for the International Mobile Film Festival, who was actually the person behind this event, Black Comics Day, in San Diego. His name is Keithan Jones, and he is the creator and the owner of Kid Comics. The kid in you never dies. I urge you to go to our website and click on his logo, look at his website where the comics are and the event itself. It's going to be very inspiring for you. Now, speaking of inspiring, let's go ahead now. Let's talk to our guest, Antoinette. Hey everyone, let's welcome Antoinette Van Sluytman from San Diego. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, I met you at the International, what was it called? Oh, Black Comics Day last month. I almost named my own film festival. Sorry, guys.
Not yet.
But when I met you on that, it was an incredible experience because one of the things I wanted to make sure to do was to go on your panel. And guys, she was on this panel, and she became an instant star. Everybody was just like inspired by everything you said. And even the moderator was like, I just can't stop listening to you. It was called Black Women in Comics and Publishing. And you are let me see. Hold on. I actually did write this down because you've got a list. You're an artist, a writer, a graphics designer, a freelance illustrator, and the co-founder of Broken Chalice Studios. Mm-hmm. So why don't you share with us a little bit about that? And also, why did you get on this panel? Like, you know, you didn't just walk in off the street. There's some pretty amazing things that you were sharing for the reasons why, you know, it was a panel and you were in it.
Yeah, so the panel was very much tied in to what my business stands for at its core, the mission statement, pretty much. So Broken Chalice Studios is a multimedia studio started by me and my sister, who's also the co-founder, Rose Van Sluytman. And we specialize in art, writing, and film. We consider those our three main pillars. And we believe in the concept for us, by us. Our goal has always been to diversify the film, writing, video game industries, bringing Black and brown female representation to the forefront, because we grew up being very aware of just how much that representation was lacking. The gaps in the media were very much apparent in a lot of the creative industries that we ourselves were very interested in. And I got into storytelling at a very young age, and just from being so invested into that community, it was apparent just how often I just I came into these scenarios where I didn't see women who reflected me or my sister. So we started this whole thing with a goal to fill those gaps and counter literary hegemony with these portrayals of characters who have empowering representation and send good images to young girls so that, other girls don't have to deal with what we did. And there's a lot of other women who will tell you similar stories of how they grew up not being able to see themselves, especially in male-dominated industries, which, living in a patriarchy, we know that's very apparent in our society. And so I'm really happy that Black Comics Day had that panel, Black Women in Comics, because just from being there, it was apparent there as well, being one of the only female creatives at the event. And majority of the other artists were male. They were all wonderful people, and I made some wonderful connections there. But overall, it became a common thing that me and my sister experienced, being one of the only females in the room, being the only spokesperson, and it's really been a mission. And I'm really glad to have had the opportunity to speak, bringing the next generation of women to that panel. And I'm really glad that you were inspired by it, because it's really a passion of mine, and I always seek to put those messages in all of my work.
Yeah, it was the connection of the storytelling, and also because you mentioned filmmaking as one of your interests and one of your plans with your company. And you happen to be in San Diego, and most of our listeners know that have been listening to this, that a lot of the people that come into this podcast are in another country or far away from San Diego. And so I always look to San Diego as having some wonderful, no, not everybody that's interesting is far away. We have some wonderful people here in San Diego who are very inspiring. And you were talking about, the scene there, and I noticed that too. There were a few tables that had a guy and a girl, and then I would start talking to, the female person, and they were sort of telling me like, well, I'm just helping him out.
Right.
And that kind of, I was like, and I remember saying to somebody, well, yeah, but you're not just helping, you're a part of this. You're sitting at the table,
Exactly.
And I think making people aware of different situations helps people notice it and change it, right?
Exactly. I'm always talking about this with like my peers and colleagues in terms of female representation. It's very important that women are being put behind those scenes to tell their own stories. And it's not just the men, because, even then we see a lot of stereotypes being perpetuated in the media by men themselves, especially when it comes to Black women, the hypersexualization that women experience, the stereotypes. And a lot of people aren't aware of them. And I firmly believe that only women can tell their stories the way it should be told. So that's really what Broken Chalice stands for.
I'm really into the whole empowerment thing, because storytelling, there's sometimes that I've said, the most powerful thing in the world, if we had an apocalypse, right, money would be worthless. I mean, I don't know. Do you like zombie movies?
Yeah, I'll watch them.
Yeah. So in the zombie movies, right, for example, money goes away. It means nothing. Nobody cares. It's like, oh, I have $1 million. It's like, so what? What I need is this and I need that. And so people are resorting to survival mode, right? And money doesn't really end up having, because money is just a piece of paper or a piece of metal or something, And so one of the things that I noticed when I was watching The Walking Dead, right, is, because it's a series instead of just one movie, is how people over time, their group gets larger and they start to build a community. And when they're building the community, they are empowered to actually win and survive together. They have more power together than they do apart, obviously. And so one of the things that brought them closer to each other is, so they're walking around, they meet each other, and then they have the night scene, right? And in the night scene, or while they're waiting for others or whatever they're doing, they're just sort of, a couple of the characters are like stuck hanging around each other. And what do? They actually share stories with each other, how they got to this and things like that. And when they share their stories, they start to connect. And when they start to connect by sharing stories, they start to trust each other. And that's where the spark of the community comes from, through trust. And then they become powerful as a community. So I always see that empowerment in storytelling being way more powerful than all the money in the world.
Yes, exactly. It's so true. I like to think of storytellers as like subconscious gatekeepers, creative pioneers. If you think about it, we hold the stories in our hands just through words, and we have the power to like engage a different dimension where we bridge realities and challenge perception of what's reality in general. And I always like to say, our job is not to truly know or understand as human beings, but it's to create from that unknown extraordinary things that will live on when we no longer exist. And you could see that from like the beginning of time, how narratives kind of become immortal through history, and we hold on to them, whether that be religion or history, philosophies. It's all the written word, and it's carried with us and passed down from generation to generation. And I think through storytelling, we can reach universal levels of influence.
That's the key right there, the influence part. Because the most powerful people in the earth through times, like let's just go a few years back to like Julius Caesar, right? During those times, the people that shared their stories, right, they had their voice carried through all their entire country. And people would pass their word on as the authority, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean they're the only ones who told stories or had stories, but it was theirs that went down in the history books.
Exactly.
Where everybody else's is like, well, they don't matter. And the thing about mobile filmmaking, and guys, I'm trying to inspire her.
It's working.
The cool thing about mobile filmmaking is that now you can be that voice and share your story through film, right, to everybody in the world. And if you have a message with your story, and most film directors do, they always have a message. They always have a piece of themselves that goes into their stories. There's a bunch of different filmmakers that tend to do things like that, and it's because they have something to say. And film is the way to say it. And sometimes film it's kind of like, comic books and books, novels and all those things. We were talking about video games, the stories can be more accepted, I suppose, than us standing on a street corner going, hey, let me tell you, this is how this is, and this is how this should be, sending that message in that way, as opposed to sharing it as a story in a way that people can consume it better.
Exactly. Yes. And the one thing that I find very interesting about mobile filmmaking is the accessibility of it. And if you look at a lot of that's going on in the Black community in particular, how we're not able to like access these creative industries and avenues because of the accessibility, and how we're not really encouraged to pursue a lot of the stuff that you're speaking about. It's because, when it comes to filmmaking, equipment is very expensive, and not a lot of people have the access to them. So if you think about phones, almost everybody has a phone, and we carry it with us everywhere. And that is actually a great possibility for those looking to get into film. So I'm really interested in that specifically when it comes to mobile filmmaking. And another important thing that you just mentioned was having something to say. And I think that's really important when it comes to storytelling and narratives, is having that message, knowing why you're doing what you're doing. I think a lot of times too many people have the spotlight and have all the backings, but don't have anything to say. And I think there are also a lot of people who do have a lot to say, but they're silenced and they don't have the tools to have their voices heard. So when it comes to mobile filmmaking, I think that's a great possibility to fill those gaps.
Most definitely. Wow. I'm just like absorbing everything you just said. This is what happened when I was, listening to you in the panel, and what was happening to everybody there is like, you have a very good way of expressing yourself and saying these things in words eloquently.
Oh, thank you. Well, words are powerful. Words stick with us. And I learned that from engaging with words, from reading at a very young age and listening to people like you and making connections and learning from the silence as well as the noise.
It's one of the things. So in film, right? It's almost through an action and a perception. You don't always have to say things for people to get it, to get what the message is or what is going on. Sometimes you'll watch a film, and by the end of the movie, these thoughts and feelings are turning around in your head over and over again. And it may not have that much to do with any one particular thing that happened in the film. It was just, film has a way of subliminally sending messages.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of like I was working at I wasn't working. I was asked to work in a local news station here a very long time ago. Way before the elephants. No, I'm just kidding. But it was, I spent a night there. And there was a guy that was editing. He says, do you know how much power I have? He says, the news anchor is telling this story. They're putting so much trust into me because I'm taking the B-roll, the images that people are seeing while they're listening to the news anchor. And do you know that those images can really change the message of the story that the news anchor is talking about right now? It says, listen to, he was telling me, he says, listen to when they talk about burglaries and they don't have an actual burglary. He says, do you realize that they're putting videos of low-income neighborhoods in there? The message that's sending, that's where burglaries happen, or that's who's causing the burglaries. And I was like, that's so true. And that's what happens with film. You have the audio, right? And the spoken word, and then you have the video. And you can use that creatively to design a different message and create a feeling in your viewer. And the thing is that because of the phone, like once you start doing it, once you start making a movie with your phone and recording and things like that, right? You're gonna learn more the more you do, right? Because as you watch what you've recorded and how you put those things together when you start editing them, you'll see, just like any viewer, what the message is that you just conveyed to yourself about doing that. And you can change it and see how that affects you.
Exactly. And, a lot of people will underestimate the power of the media. And let me just tell you, those who control the media control the narrative. And unfortunately, that's just how our society is wired. And it's more than obvious just how disproportionately those who control the narrative are white male. And that's exactly why I'm always talking about why women need to get behind the cameras and not just in front of it. Like, we need to see ourselves, but we also need to be the ones in control of how we're being seen. And I always say, the intangible world can claim a life in the most beautiful ways. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's subconsciously controls how we see each other, how we perceive each other. It's very much a mental game. and just how, we don't see ourselves growing up. We don't believe that we're worth being seen. And I think that spirals into a lot of other problems that we see, and we're not aware of the root of it, which is very much this visual chasm that exists all around us. And we don't consider those pulling the strings behind it.
And isn't it awesome to be able to think, right, that you can be the one pulling the strings, to tell the story from your perspective and be a part of the entire narrative, as far as being included.
Yes, I always loved talking about that. Like, even at Black Comics Day, I loved it when, like, the parents would come up to our table and say, my daughter, she's an artist and she likes to draw. And I'm like, tell her to keep going, keep drawing, and let her become a businesswoman as well and know how to protect her work and build an empire from it. And I always like to encourage other creatives to, like, see their work for the, potential that it has.
I was talking, now I can't remember who it was, so I'm not going to name the person, even though I almost just did and thought maybe that's not the right person. But I was talking to somebody about cosplay and the fact that you have, when a little kid, right, says, I want to be Batgirl, or I want to be Spider-Man, or I want to be Wonder Woman, or I want to be, whatever, right? And the parents will just sort of laugh it off, like they're just playing around. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, sometimes as they get older, they're like, well, I kind of want to be like this. They change it into I want to be like Wonder Woman. I want to be like blah, blah, blah. That's like them already starting to give in, mm-hmm. And then you go to Comic-Con here in San Diego, and you find these cosplayers that is their career, and they're buying homes and cars and paying their bills through cosplay. They travel in different parts of the country with their cosplay. They become famous for it, and people will pay them. And it's like, you wanted to be Wonder Woman, and now you're getting paid to be Wonder Woman. So who's to say, right? Don't kill the dream for a kid because we're not in the future. We don't know how things will evolve if we let people evolve things. Ooh, I just said a cool quote.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to write that one down. And you know what? I love just how at these events the kids would come up to our table and point out specific illustrations that we would have, and they'd say stuff like, oh wow, she looks like me, or oh look, she looks like you, and I would love to, like, dress up like her. Tell me more about her. That for me was so fulfilling, because it really just keys into why we started the business in the first place, is to bring that representation of girls, because just the range of, like, the way women look, our body types, our hair texture, we come in so many different shades, and I just love how we were able to tap into that and show girls images of themselves, and they felt empowered by it.
Yeah, and you also have the power to change yourself whenever you feel like it. You don't need permission for that.
Exactly.
Hey, tell me something about Broken Chalice, and what's the plan to go into the film industry?
Yeah, so like I said, we have 3 pillars, and film is very much one of them. Specifically with film, we are looking to expand into 2D animation. We have a whole universe of characters, essentially, and stories that we're planning on producing in the 2D animation world. And that's really going to be our first branch into the film industry. And then we want to get into building an actual film studio for our company, and basically bringing in everything that I've already mentioned previously, that representation for, like, Black heroes, specifically Black and brown women. So right now we're looking to invest a little bit more into that kind of equipment and work on our stories. But film is an exciting goal of ours that we're really motivated to get into right now.
And now you know how to get into it.
Yeah, exactly. This is why networking is so important. Through Black Comics Day, I've met you, And now I'm having this wonderful conversation about film, mobile filmmaking, and representation.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, it's an opportunity that's too easy to not take. What we tell people all the time is like, well, you know, it's no big deal. You record something, you don't like it, you look at it, you go, you delete it, whatever, you know, no big deal. Mm-hmm. It's a really easy thing. It's easier than what people. So if you're following the filmmaking world in general, right? It can be very intimidating. Mm-hmm. And in this other, you know, manner of mobile filmmaking, if you start really digging in a little too deep, you can go down the rabbit hole of what lenses do I get? What this do I get? What gimbals do I get? All these little technical things. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you may never come out. and yes. No film ever gets made, you know. But the story is the key. And if you have stories and if you have messages that you want to convey through your stories, then that's the perfect thing. And I think you'll definitely succeed with it. And whether you want to continue as a mobile filmmaker or not, it's not important. At least it'll give you the opportunity to step inside of the filmmaking world.
Yeah, exactly. And the heart of it all is a passion for storytelling, of being a creative visionary and having that message. The message for me is the heartbeat of the company. That's what, you know, drives us. It's our lifeline that keeps all of our pillars standing up straight. And I feel like, you know, with mobile devices, it's a lot easier for other people who don't have, you know, access to these kind of big budgets and equipment to get into this industry that is very much so lacking representation right now. So I'm really happy that, you know, there's a space for that and that you're helping filmmakers get more awareness of that space.
So not to change the subject, but there's a word that I saw here. It's called scholartist.
Yes.
What is that?
So scholartist is, so I come from a family of artists, and I believe there are different types of artists. There are performative artists, and then there's artists who speak for something and through their work, but not on just a artistic level, but on a very intellectual level. It's a very psychological depth that connects to people through a different type of avenue that a lot of people feel but cannot see. And when I say scholartist, I see it as a combination of the fact that when I illustrate, it's for a higher purpose or a more intellectual intention in a way. But I also like hearing other people's perspectives of it and interpretation. So yeah, it's a little thing that I like to refer to myself as, because sometimes I hear the word artist and I feel like, that's just not enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you have your own angle.
Yeah, there's just so much to being an artist that's a lot more complex than people realize.
It's a big net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then BC, you know, we tap into things that go pretty deep, you know, in the complexity, the mores of humanity. And I see that reflected in language. And sometimes language can be it can't carry the weight of creativity sometimes. So I like to explore different words.
Yeah, I really like it. I actually Googled it. And I was like, Google doesn't even know what it is? What?
That's the power of words, you know? You could always make new ones.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know, right? How awesome is that? The world we live in right now is like so Ijin, like so, what do you call it? I forgot what that's called. In the Asian world, right? The negative and the positive.
Do you mean like yin yang?
Yes. It was really simple. I just, for some reason.
That's why I doubted it for the like.
Yeah, because you're like, it can't be that one simple thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah. So one more thing well, a few more things, but talk to us a little bit about some of the things that your studio provides.
Yeah, so we provide art freelance services. We're open to commissions. If anyone likes character design, character customization, we really specialize in that. We do different styles from realism to cartoon. And we also do graphic design services. At events, you see we'll always have like our art prints set up. I have poetry book and a mini graphic novel titled Black Tina, which explores Black and brown women of history and their historical contributions through the eyes of a little girl who kind of plays dress up and she idolizes them. And it's Black Tina because, I like to bring that multiracial heritage to the forefront as well because, again, that's another gap that exists in the media right now. And my poetry book is really more of a spoken word style of poetry. And it talks a lot about revolutions and movements and empowerment. It's a very emotional poetry in a way, but in a way that I hope that inspires. And yeah, we make merchandise through our art as well. So we have stickers, we have new acrylics, and we're working on our very first graphic novel. We're hoping to have it done pretty soon. And it'll feature one of our characters from the BC universe. So we'll hope to introduce that soon. We're very excited for that.
Wow.
Yeah, and besides that, we're also working on like some fiction books.
Because I went on your website and the illustrations there, and I'm like, holy cow. I mean, I was thinking, one of the things that I noticed probably may happen with you too, but sometimes I'm clicking on a movie to watch based on the poster.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that some posters involve illustrations and things like that are just like so awesome. And then you watch a movie and you're like, what is this?
Right. Yeah.
But at least it gets somebody to click, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah. So do you guys do posters and things like that?
Oh, yeah. We do graphic design, marketing, brand design, logo. My sister has done album art covers a lot. I'm also open to copyright services. We cover a lot of different creative avenues because we are a multimedia studio. So we dabble in a lot of different areas.
So this will be good for people in the mobile filmmaking industry as well to tap into, because sometimes like novice mobile filmmakers don't have the access, to traditional, legal services about copywriting and things like that. And, artists for, the services that you named, which are a lot. And it can help them. I mean, just creating something for their film, and stickers even, for them to take to film festivals, when they go there.
Yeah, like we're really looking to expand our merchandise into different products that people can enjoy. But overall, we kind of stick to our main theme, which has always been drawn from like history, imagination, speculative radicalism, and cultural integrity.
Yeah.
Through like either animated film, creative writing, graphic novels, or like fine art, which really was our foundation for the business to begin with.
Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff that really attracts people. Those illustrations that you're talking about. When I was watching them, guys, wait, what is it's Broken Chalice artstation.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you go there, I mean, you're just going to stay there for a while.
That's the goal.
Yeah. No, it's just amazing artwork. Now, when you're doing that artwork, is that all you?
No, some of it's my sister. So we pretty much do a little bit of everything, but we have specialties. So I specialize in the writing department, and my sister, she specializes in the animation department. But in terms of art, we both kind of sprung from that route. And from there, we expanded to digital art. So you'll find a little bit of mine and then a little bit of my sister. So it's really interesting because some people will be able to recognize our different styles. So it's always fun to see if people can like pinpoint which one would be mine or my sister's. But yeah, we're very much to the yin and yang of the business.
Going back to that, right?
Yep.
Hey, I have a crazy question to ask you. And maybe you won't even want to answer it, but why not? Let's see.
Shoot it my way.
I know, right? So you have access to a phone that basically has an awesome camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to tell a story. And the young people of today have a lot of stories they want to share. They have a lot of messages they want people to get a handle on, right? Perspectives and so forth. And say that they say, all right, you know what? I'm going to use my phone and grab some people and we're going to make some movies that send this message. How do you see that in the future, like literally changing the world into a better place?
I think people will be able to hear the untold stories, the narratives that exist in the quiet noise. And I think we'll be able to see two sides of the coin for once. And there will be a lot more control in the hands of people who have had their control taken away from them. And we might be able to hear voices that have been silenced. Because you mentioned a lot about how videos taken from mobile phones have become viral. And that from that, awareness spread to like a universal level. And it may not have been like a film, a motion picture, but the influence could potentially be immortal in that sense, though how it resonates with us, how the recordings of certain cases of police brutality, people will always remember that and refer to it. And I think because of those recordings, a new avenue is opened where awareness can be spread. It's up to people to choose what they do with that awareness, if they can act on it beyond, a tweet or, just holding up signs. It's up to that person. But at the end of the day, I think hearing these stories is what could trigger that first spark of resistance. And hearing the stories that we might relate to and that we're completely unaware of it might be able to spread out the control of the narrative. At least that's what I believe.
Stepping into somebody else's shoes for a change will really...
Exactly.
Yeah. And evoke some sympathy towards one another that is so lacking right now. Not with everybody, but at least that's what the narrative is right now, that nobody has sympathy. When in reality, you and I both know personally that's not true. But it is still true for a lot of people. It's very lacking in sympathy. It's very easy for people to just wave people off, especially because it's on social media.
And really that's a huge difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yeah.
And like how some people won't care unless it's something they personally experienced or dealt with or, know about at least. And I feel like what we have is sympathy that goes nowhere and lack empathy that inspires action.
Yeah, because it's like the parent saying, well, stop complaining about this because when I was your age, blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's not sympathy.
Exactly.
Or I should say that's not empathy.
Exactly.
It's very different.
You're really not considering yourself in that person's shoes. You're really only thinking about how it affects you.
Exactly. Because you're looking at it through your eyes and your perspective instead of that other person's perspective.
Yep. Such as the ways of human nature, unfortunately.
Yeah. But I think films do that. As a matter of fact, there have been some films that will bring to light, say, a sickness or a disease or, a condition, right, that someone has. And all of a sudden, it's like they will donate to charities or volunteer or, it moves people. You can literally move people into action without even calling for it. Not like those little videos and then they say, if, like the ones, I can't watch those. The ones about the dogs freezing and starving and being abused. I just literally cannot. I have like PTSD or something with that. And I just cannot. And so, but when people,
I don't blame you.
Yeah, when people people do that, and then at the end, like, do you even think you have to say help these animals? Because I mean, if you're not feeling that when you're watching that, something's wrong.
Saying, like, visual storytelling is so powerful. It's so impactful. And the more interactive it is, the more, you really bridge that space between human beings.
So as a director, as a feature director, that's part of your job, is to make sure that your story connects with your audience, the audience that you're targeting, because you can't possibly target everybody. But if you do, you do, right?
Exactly. And that's what I aspire to do. It's my mission, is to have that connection with people, have things that sparks debate, discourse. I always say, like, if you walk away from watching a film with no reaction or no feeling, it could be something as even like anger. But if you don't have that, for me, I feel like that movie didn't have that connection with anybody. But when I walk out from a movie and I'm still talking about it a day later, that's how I know that movie connected with me, that I was drawn in. And it may not even have been my favorite or something I found incredibly likable. But the fact that I'm still talking about it a day later is that it's on my mind.
It captivated you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's part of the job of the film. And it's, we're talking about, when I say filmmaker, one person, but it's really a lot of times making films is a great opportunity to build a family in a way, of creators together working for that goal. Because when you do that, it really does enhance the potential of your film and your story. And you get input from different people, in the pre-production phase while you're putting your story together as a film, when you're storyboarding, when you're writing the screenplay and you have members of, the team that you're going to be working with, your crew, certain people that you trust, people that you trust to basically say, that's not going to work, or that sends off this feeling. All those things collaboratively help you make a better film.
Yeah, exactly. It's a manifestation of the greatest kind. It's just, storytelling is freedom to me. It's just the sweetest perfection.
Aw, I like that.
It really is. And the fact that it's just part of so many different areas in the creative industry, whether it be like graphic novels, fiction novels, games. We were talking about games earlier, and film. It's all there. And I feel like we'll always need stories as human beings. At the end of the day, we'll always connect with that story. The word, the power of words will always be that spark that we may be in denial of, but it exists, and we will feel its flame one way or another in our lifetime.
I love it. I love the way how you even brought a flame to it.
I mean, come, we're here to set the stage on fire, aren't we?
That's right. A spark of creativity. Hey, I want to make sure that we covered everything that you expected us to cover. So let me know if there's anything you think we missed. Something else that you might want to talk about.
I think we're pretty much on track. We're always down to collaborate with other creatives such as yourself, and we're looking to expand, network. Our long-term goal is to have a physical space, but as of now, if you want to support us, you can check out our social medias. We're on Instagram, Twitter, ArtStation, as you've mentioned. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, we're creatives at heart, looking to build an empire of our work, and you'll be seeing more of us soon, I hope.
Yeah. Are you planning it? Do you have any other events and panels and things like that scheduled?
Well, we just finished Kumbha Fest last weekend, and it was great. We had a great time, met some wonderful people there. Me personally, I have a panel set up March 24th with City College. I will be talking with the wonderful Dr. Lawana Richmond once again about Afrofuturism. I'm very excited for that. And I'm also going to be at a convention, also March 10th. It's the CCA Writers Conference. I will be on a panel with senior agent and my boss, Natalie Lacosille. We'll be talking about writing for high school students, publishing 101. Really excited for that. I have a couple of other things lined up, but we're also looking into NFTs right now, that as a business. And then Comic-Con, hopefully soon.
Right.
You'll be seeing Broken Chalice as a vendor at Comic-Con.
Nice.
Because, we like to speak with our actions. And when we say we want to see Black women at the table, we'd like to be that example we speak of. Because I have to bring up this quote once again. As the great Toni Morrison once said, if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, you must write it. We write our stories. And that's why we want to see how our work does beyond San Diego. But Comic-Con has very much been a goal of ours for a long time.
Do you where can people find links to go and see these things, if there are any of them that are open to the public?
You know what? We will most likely be updating through our social media.
Okay.
Yeah, through the panel coming up, I'll most likely be updating that. But yeah, we tend to like to post early about what events we're going to, like the Kumbha Fest that just ended. So yeah, if you want to stay up to date with things Broken Chalice is working on, the best thing is to follow us through our social media.
And another thing is, guys, Antoinette plans to come to the International Mobile Film Festival, so you can meet her in person and connect.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And ask her about all the most awesome things that she does. But make sure you go to that website, brokenchalice.artstation.com, and check out the illustrations, because they're just jaw-dropping. They're incredible.
Thank you. Yes. And if anyone's looking for freelance work, you can shoot us an email. We're always open to commissions, and we love working with other creatives. And I'm very excited to be attending the convention coming up, as well as the film festival.
Awesome. All right. One thing we always do, say goodbye to our listeners.
Yes, gotta love the listeners. Thank you, and goodbye, everybody.